reading an excerpt from my story, Tell Me a Story, just a middle section so it doesn't give away the whole thing. A portrait of Nana, painted when she was a young woman, was grandly displayed over the marble mantel. In the painting, she stood in a proud stance, her right hand on her hip, her rich navy jacket open to reveal a soft blue dress, and long pearls that set off her blazing red hair and penetrating emerald eyes. As a young child, I could sit and gaze at that portrait for what seemed like hours. One day, when I was 6 years old, Nana came up from behind, catching me off guard in the forbidden room. "Do you know who that is?" she asked softly. "That's you a long time ago," I declared, looking up into Nana's face. Relieved that she wasn't angry, I added, "You were so pretty." "Yes, that was me when I first came to America, all the way from Italy." "Tell me the story again, Nana," I begged. Nana's stories were a refuge for me. In her stories, I could dream, escape from my troubled family life. "What was it like coming to America? Were you scared?" I asked, my eyes wide, anticipating Nana was about to tell me a wonderful tale. "Ah, no, I wasn't afraid. America was new and exciting. And you see, when I first walked off the gangway from the ship, I had my auburn hair. Back then it was very, very long, piled in a big bun," she said animatedly, gesturing toward the top of her head. "I was something else, with big green eyes too," Nana laughed good-naturedly, and then let out a slow sigh. I stared at her short, brassy orange curls and tried to imagine a much younger woman with a different shade of hair. A man called out to me from the dock, an artist. He told me I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen and that he must paint me. Nana gestured toward the mantel. "This portrait won an award, you know. It was called Woman with Pearls. But why did you come to America?" I wondered aloud, gazing at the painting as if it held answers. "Well, that is a long story," Nana chuckled, then walked to the draperies and drew them open. "But since we have some time, I will tell you." She sat in one of the deep red velvet chairs, and I plopped down at her feet. "My father's name was Emilio Perucci. He was a judge, and my lovely mother, Frances, was an opera singer. She would sing in the big halls, the Italian opera houses," Nana said with pride. She walked over to the coffee table to retrieve a small antique frame that held 2 sepia cameo portraits and handed them to me. My great-grandfather looked like a distinguished Italian gentleman with dark skin and hair carefully coiffed in the waved style from the turn of the century. His wife had creamy white skin and long brown hair pulled into a large bun that sat on the top of her head. She wore a long white linen dress with tiny beads and lace around the neckline. My parents loved to travel on those big ocean liners. They traveled first class. And it was during one of their trips to visit America that my mother gave birth to me. Nana paused to watch my reaction. "Wow, born out on the ocean?" I inhaled sharply, picturing my grandmother's birth. I imagined her mother wearing a long flowing gown and being attended to by a doctor and servants in her first-class chambers as her precious baby was birthed. The most special part was that I was born on international waters, so I was both an Italian and an American citizen, Nana grinned wildly. I realized she enjoyed being special. In Italy, we lived in a house by the sea, so I used to swim and play at the beach all day, she continued with a faraway look. And when I got tired of swimming, I could swing in the hammock on our porch and watch the boats. "That sounds fun, Nana. Why did you ever leave?" "Well, my parents chose a man for me to marry whom I did not love," she explained. "In the olden days, back in Italy, they called it an arranged marriage." Her eyes clouded over. I imagined Nona as a young woman crying herself to sleep at night, trying to fathom a loveless marriage with an older man. In my mind, he had dark, oily skin and a twisted mustache like the villain in Western movies. "What did you do?" I explained. Even at such a young age, I understood the difficult decision Nana had faced. The pain and fear of what it was like to suddenly lose one's family was still fresh in my mind. "I was both an American and an Italian citizen," Nana reminded me, with a twinkle in her eye. "So when my parents sent me to Pittsburgh to visit family friends one summer, I needed no papers. They thought I was going for just a vacation, but I never returned. Her decision to abscond sounded so romantic and impulsive. I was impressed by her fearlessness and a fierce resolve that I'd never seen her express before. I suddenly felt very close to my Nona, and privileged that she would share her secret.